Nightcrawler's exit was inevitable. This isn't the story about how he joined the X-Men, this is the story of why he couldn't stay. His story is usually remembered for what happened in the White House, but that moment only makes sense once you understand the man underneath. Before the world feared him, his story began in Canada, in the quiet corners of a traveling circus, a place that shaped him long before any mission. His story is told in 3 chapters. The multiverse holds many versions of Kurt Wagner, but this file follows just one, the Nightcrawler from X2. But first, this part of his story rarely makes the timeline. Kurt Wagner is found as a baby and raised by Margali Zardos. He would stay up all hours of the night. That's how he would get the name Nightcrawler, given to him by Margali. When his powers appeared, she brought him into the circus. They dressed him as the devil, but that's not who he was. He was gentle. He was compassionate, a boy with a deep faith in God. During one performance, Kurt broke from the routine. Just one impulse caused Amanda, someone who he cared about deeply, to be put into danger. He teleported to save her, but broke his ribs in the process. When Margali asked why he risked everything, he just said, "The devil made me do it." He goes to a church to pray, searching for purpose in a world that saw him as a monster. Kurt sees everything through faith, and he believes God kept him alive for a reason he hadn't yet discovered. Amanda found him inside the church, and she told him he didn't need to apologize for who he was. Next thing you know, she kissed him. And for a moment, he believed it. But then he thought to himself, this is too good to be true. And he was right. Twice. Amanda did care for him, but someone else was inside of his mind, pushing Kurt towards a trap he never saw coming. A mutant working for Colonel William Stryker. He's the architect of mutant experimentation, operating out of hidden facilities like the one at Alkali Lake. That's where Kurt was taken. He wakes up in a cell with a collar around his neck. Stryker wants answers. His languages, his powers, everything. Kurt gave him nothing. He tried to teleport, but the collar stopped him. Pain surges all throughout his body. Stryker thought he broke him. He hadn't. Alone in that cell, Kurt goes back to prayer. Not for rescue, not for escape. He prays for Amanda, for Margali, even the soldiers who were hurting him. That's who he is. Kurt is a man of faith. He's always thinking of others before himself. While he prays, the guards drag another prisoner into the cell. The guard, Norris, heard Kurt whispering to God, and he yelled at him to stop. He has no right to pray to his God. Kurt didn't answer, so Norris hit him in the face. He hit him full force with a metal club. Kurt drops to the floor, bleeding into the concrete. Because even his faith was treated like a crime. The woman they brought in was barely conscious. She's writhing in pain, she's trembling in fear. Kurt tries to comfort her. He tried to understand why someone in that much pain wasn't in the ICU. Then her mutation surfaced, adamantium claws pushing through her fingertips. Kurt screams for help. The guards pinned him down. "You finished praying yet?" Kurt answered, "Almost, but it didn't work. You're still ugly." Norris raised the baton again, and Kurt learned the price for keeping his spirit alive. They put a bag over his head and dragged Kurt outside to Stryker. He told him to remove the bag, and he saw Kurt's face. The blood, the bruises. Stryker wasn't happy to see that. Kurt was asked if he could kill, but he didn't understand. Stryker offered him a chance at revenge. He would turn off the inhibitor collar and let Kurt kill the men who hurt him. All he had to do was ask. But Kurt refused. Killing would go against God. Stryker asked, against whose God? More people have died in his name than for anyone else. Kurt didn't flinch. He told Stryker that God is only capable of love, even love for a man like him. Back in the cell, Kurt tries to comfort the woman beside him. He told her she'd be out before the guards returned. Norris walked in and told Kurt he only wanted to say goodbye. He said he wouldn't hurt anyone, but he also said he had something better than a baton. He had good news. Kurt was leaving tomorrow, and he doubted Kurt would ever come back. But then Kurt asked about Amanda. She never loved you. It was all mind control. We've been watching her this whole time. She's still at the circus with someone better looking. She would never choose a freak like you. Kurt was devastated. Broken. He thought he found real happiness. Norris walked away proud of the damage he'd done. This was cruel for no reason. This was hatred. And real hate can cause real pain. That night, they strapped Kurt down. He was silent. Stryker confirmed everything Norris told him. And then Kurt finally cried. He was broken. Stryker went on to say, they extracted Weapon 12's mind control ability, distilled into a vial, and a single drop on the neck could turn any mutant into Stryker's personal weapon. After getting the vial, everything went dark for Kurt. He teleports into the guard's office, a dagger in his hand. He grabs Norris and vanishes. When Kurt returns, Stryker is pleased. He told Kurt he had one last mission. They were going to take a trip to Washington. At this point, Kurt can only take orders. He's helpless inside of his own mind. For many viewers, this chapter of Kurt's story went unseen. The first time we see Kurt in the X-Men timeline, he's not himself. He's inside the White House. A weapon made to look like a tourist. Kurt feels his body move. He feels the dagger in his boot, but none of it is his choice. He attacks the Secret Service. Every strike is precise. Every teleport is forced. He reaches the president. The dagger gets raised, and a shot rings out. The spell breaks. Kurt escapes in a panic, leaving behind the blade that Stryker would use to frame him. To understand what happened in that room, let's talk about what Kurt's teleportation really is. Throughout the multiverse, Kurt's teleportation works by traveling through the Brimstone dimension. When he returns to his reality, the remnants of that dimension appear as smoke. In the hands of a free man, it's escape. In the hands of a controlled man, it's a tool. This Kurt never chose violence. The attack hits the news and everything spirals. The White House immediately calls Colonel Stryker, and the X-Men begin their own investigation. Professor X tracks Kurt to a church in Boston. Jean and Storm arrive. They find him hiding in the rafters, still running from the monster the world believes he is. He teleports from corner to corner while shouting in German, trying to scare them away. He doesn't trust them. Why would he? Storm and Jean use their powers to bring him to ground level.
I didn't mean to harm anyone.
Now, why would people have gotten that impression? What's your name?
Wagner. Kurt Wagner.
Kurt explains what happened at the White House. He saw everything, he felt everything, but he couldn't stop anything.
And before you were in the White House, what do you remember?
Nothing. I was here.
Storm tries to understand the markings on his skin. Jean sees something else. The wound on the back of his neck where Stryker took away his free will. Storm and Jean begin to understand that Kurt wasn't the real threat. On the flight back to New York, Storm notices Kurt is praying, and she approaches him gently. She asks him about the markings on his skin, and Kurt explains that they're angelic symbols passed down by the Archangel Gabriel. Storm thinks they're beautiful, and she asks how many he has. One for every sin. He shifts the attention back to her and asks if she and Jean are school teachers. Tells him the school is for people like them, a place to be safe from everyone else.
Outside of the circus, most people were afraid of me, but I didn't hate them.
He pitied them, not out of arrogance though. They fear his outside appearance, but they never look beyond to see his heart. Most people only trust what they see, and they fail at trying to understand. Storm tells him she gave up on pity a long time ago, but Kurt looks beyond that.
Someone so beautiful should not be so angry.
Sometimes anger can help you survive.
So can faith.
While Storm and Jean are away, Stryker attacks the school. His soldiers take components for Cerebro and the children. Logan escapes with Bobby, Rogue, and John to Boston. He calls the X-Jet for pickup. As things go from bad to worse, the X-Jet arrives just on time. As they're headed back to the X-Mansion, two fighter pilots lock onto them. Missiles are inbound. Jean is able to stop one, but the second one hits. The back of the jet rips wide open. Rogue is pulled into the sky. Kurt reacts before anyone else can. He teleports into the open air, catches her mid-fall, and brings her back to safety. As the jet spirals to the ground, Magneto stops it in place. That night in the forest, Magneto and Mystique meet with the remaining X-Men, and Kurt watches from afar. Rogue thanks him for saving her life, and she asks if he can hear anything that they're saying. He gives a polite smile, and he says he can take a closer look. Magneto explains what he believes Stryker is planning, and he thinks Kurt may know the location of Stryker's base. Jean goes on to read his mind. Painful memories surface, cold metal, concrete halls. They learn the base is underground at Alkali Lake. As the team devises their plan, Kurt approaches Mystique. He wants to know why she doesn't stay in disguise all the time. She can use her powers to look like anyone. Her answer is simple.
Because we shouldn't have to.
For a man who spent his entire life being stared at, judged, and feared, that line cuts deeper than most understand. Kurt hides because the world taught him to. Mystique refuses to hide because the world doesn't deserve that power. In a single moment, she gives him something he has never been offered, not even in the circus that raised him. The idea that he is enough exactly as he is. In other universes, their connection runs deeper. But here, in this timeline, this moment isn't mother to son. It's one outcast telling another that he doesn't have to hide. The Alliance wants Kurt to teleport inside the base.
Can you teleport inside?
No. I have to be able to see where I'm going. Otherwise, I could wind up inside a wall.
This is genuine fear of the unseen. His doubt overshadows his faith. Mystique is able to get everyone into the base. Storm teams up with Kurt, and together they move through the corridors until they find the captured children. Kurt sees the lower level and teleports down to the rescue. After their escape, Jean and Scott arrive. Jean senses Professor X is trapped by a mutant inside of an illusion and he's using Cerebro. Storm turns to Kurt and asks if he can teleport inside.
I told you, if I can't see where I'm going.
I have faith in you.
And here is the moment everything pivots. It's a small moment, but for Kurt, This is massive. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, "We walk by faith, not by sight." But in this moment, Kurt does the opposite. For all of his devotion to God, he believes more in the limitations of his powers than the possibilities of his faith. He insists he must see where he's going before he can move, even though his entire life has been shaped by trusting in who he cannot see. Storm holds him close as he begins the Lord's Prayer. Kurt takes a breath, and then he teleports past the barrier. Inside the illusion, they meet Jason Stryker, Colonel Stryker's very own son, the same man William used to hijack Kurt's mind. Outside, the dam breaks. Water tears through the facility. Kurt rushes to save Storm and Charles. He can't get Jason. The X-Men are able to escape the collapsing base, and they make it back to the jet. With the flood closing in, the jet is failing. Jean steps outside and uses her powers to hold the water back and powers the jet for escape. Logan begs Kurt to teleport her back in, but she's blocking him. This isn't Kurt's failure, this is Jean's choice. The team is understandably devastated by Jean's sacrifice. Kurt can't share in their grief, but he feels it. And in the silence that follows, he offers the only comfort he knows. It isn't for him, it's for them. At the White House, the X-Men interrupt the president's address. As Charles greets him, Kurt gives a nervous half smile, the look of someone used to frightening people he never meant to scare. Even then, the president is still scared. Xavier explains that mutants are here to stay, and the X-Men mean no harm. This is no threat. It's an opportunity. A chance to choose a better path. The X-Men vanish from the Oval Office, and this is believed by many to be the last time we ever see this version of Nightcrawler before Avengers Doomsday. A quiet exit for a character many viewers never realized was subtly defined by nonviolence. While he was in Stryker's cell, he took beatings, but he never fought back. Throughout the events of X-Men 2, Kurt teleported into danger, but he avoided fighting. The only time he was ever violent was when he was controlled by someone else. But this Kurt never felt like it was who he was. Kurt had proven his courage, but not his belonging.
This is where we diverge from the dogma.
X-Men the official game is meant to serve as a connective tissue between X-Men 2 and X-Men The Last Stand. Full transparency here, the tie-in game takes some creative liberties. We acknowledge them. But this archive follows Kurt's truth rather than the contradictions. The game doesn't expand his legend, it explains why he walked away. Charles wants to repair Cerebro, but he realizes that Stryker took parts that can't be replaced. These were custom pieces that were used to construct Cerebro 2. So he sends Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, and Nightcrawler back to Alkali Lake to retrieve the missing parts. As they approach the facility, rockets fire from the ruins of Stryker's base. Storm says she can't get anyone close enough to get inside. Kurt volunteers, but Storm tells him it's too dangerous and she tries to stop him. He says he'll keep that in mind as he teleports inside the base. Returning to Alkali Lake didn't test his powers, it tests his soul. His first mission is to shut down the defense systems and generators. Inside, he encounters Hydra soldiers and is forced to fight them to survive. Creative liberty number 1. Hydra infiltrated Stryker's base. As he moves deeper into the base, Kurt begins hearing whispers, voices slipping in and out of his thoughts. But in spite of the fear and the deja vu of being manipulated again, he's able to press forward, defeat the soldiers, and open the way for the rest of the team.
Looks like you can take care of yourself.
I don't know if I'm cut out for this, Logan. It goes against my peaceful nature.
Creative liberty number 2. Jason Stryker left scars in Kurt's mind, a voice that whispers to him constantly. For Kurt, returning to Alkali Lake opens old wounds. Colossus, Kurt, and Storm return to the school after retrieving the necessary parts for Cerebro. Kurt tells Professor X about the Sentinel program, creative liberty number 3. And Jason.
But what about Jason? He came to me in a vision. Jason's spirit is haunting us. He thinks we left him to die.
Charles digs deeper and learns something the films never address. Jason Stryker survived. Creative liberty number 4. Storm and Nightcrawler are sent to the Brooklyn Bridge to stop what appears to be a mutant riot. In reality, it's multiple men planting explosives. A sniper is aimed at the back of Storm's head, but Kurt is able to disarm him before the trigger can ever be pulled.
Stop this, before I really have to hurt you.
Even in combat, Kurt still shows mercy. He doesn't want to fight. Every strike pulls him further from the man he believes he's meant to be. Multiple Man is defeated and taken into custody. But a larger threat emerges. A Sentinel master mold is moving towards Hong Kong. Creative liberty number 5. Charles asks Magneto to align with the X-Men so they can stop it. Guided through the mission by a ghost, Nightcrawler is lured into a psychic war for Jason Stryker's soul. He's forced to confront the good child and the evil remnant of a boy broken by his father's hatred. Ultimately, Kurt grants Jason a merciful death, and that was too much for Kurt to bear. Kurt joins Beast and Professor X in his office.
You're leaving.
I am not suited for this life, Professor. I am a simple man.
Kurt tells him the truth. The school is doing wonderful things, but Charles carries too much to spare. His soul is too heavy. Kurt can't continue down this path, not because he's afraid, but because it requires him to be someone he isn't. This was his exit from the Fox timeline, but he will return in Avengers Doomsday. In the multiverse, there's another version of him that was shaped by the timeline reset of Days of Future Past and introduced in X-Men Apocalypse. For more on that branch of the universe, our other X-Men files will provide the context. But this file belongs to the Nightcrawler from X-Men 2, a gentle soul asked to fight in a war he never believed in. His tragedy isn't that he walked away from the X-Men, it's that the world kept mistaking his compassion for weakness. This Kurt Wagner was never a soldier. He was a believer, a man of faith trying to survive in a story built on conflict. And in the end, he chose the one thing Stryker could never take from him. A life defined not by violence, but by grace. And for a character introduced through chaos, this may be the only ending that ever made sense. If this file gave you new perspective on Kurt Wagner, note it.